Hi there! So, in case you're new here, I am John Green Trash. Happy Halloween first, by the way. Some people are like, it's October? No, my friends. It is the month of Halloween, which culminates in the joyous celebration of gluttony and believing in dreams and whatnot. And then begins NaNoWriMo, but that's for another story. So, back to what I was saying. You know I'm John Green Trash. Specifically, TFIOS Trash. And, for those of you who don't know, I am Philosophy Trash. Specifically, TFIOS Philosophy Trash. It's time. So, back when I was doing junior year last year, we did this thing called the Capstone Project. In fact, we have the Capstone Project again this year, but it's a different type of capstone project. The light of my life. Have to come up with a question by the 6th. I don't know what I'm doing. I might do something about whether or not chivalry was beneficial for women. That'd be cool, because they changed the capstone. So last year, they're like, I take a piece of media created in the last 5 to 10 years. Look at that. Came out in 2012, I believe. That was within the last 5 years. And trace its, or identify its, like, philosophical messages, and trace them throughout history. And then comment on, like, are they Christian? Do you agree with them? What's the deal? So obviously, being John Green Trash, I picked TFIOS, and I would have done Paper Towns this year if they kept the capstone the same. So the point is, I know a lot about the philosophy of this book. It's very rich, very deep, chock full of metaphors. So let's dive in, because we're already over 2 minutes. Gonna open to a random page and talk about it. Okay. So, first metaphor I'm going to talk about, didn't actually find it in there, is the egg metaphor, wherein Hazel Grace Lancaster talks to her parents about why she doesn't like the fact that eggs are only eaten at breakfast. Why? Because she doesn't like the ghettoization of scrambled eggs. Okay, why are breakfast foods? I asked them. Like, why don't we have curry for breakfast? Hazel eat. But why? I asked. I mean, seriously, how did scrambled eggs get stuck with breakfast exclusivity? You can put bacon on a sandwich without anyone freaking out. But the moment your sandwich has an egg, boom, it's a breakfast sandwich. Dad answered with his mouth full. When you come back, we'll have breakfast for dinner. Deal? I don't want to have breakfast for dinner, I answered, crossing knife and fork over my mostly full plate. I want to have scrambled eggs for dinner without this ridiculous construction that a scrambled egg-inclusive meal is breakfast, even when it occurs at dinner time. And then if you skip a bit, it says, anyways, I knew it was stupid, but I kind of felt bad for scrambled eggs. And so Hazel's point here, which she talks about later, is... Okay, well here, on page 143, she continues. She says, no, because Gus is going to get his sandwich. She says he's going to get something from McDonald's for breakfast, and she says, no, but I really appreciate your refusal to give in to the breakfasty social conventions. He tilted his head at me, confused. Hazel has developed an issue with the ghettoization of scrambled eggs, Mom said. It's embarrassing that we all just walk through life blindly accepting that scrambled eggs are fundamentally associated with mornings. I want to talk about this more, Augusta said, but I am starving. I will be right back. The next page, they talk about it some more. And this is where it gets really good and where I start really liking it. 145. The thing about eggs, though, he said, is that breakfastization gives the scrambled egg a certain sacrality, right? You can get yourself some bacon or cheddar cheese anywhere, anytime, from tacos to breakfast sandwiches to grilled cheese. But scrambled eggs, they're important. Ludicrous, I said. The people... I'm just saying, maybe scrambled eggs are ghettoized, but they're also special. They have a place and a time, like church does. You couldn't be more wrong, I said. You are buying into the cross-stitched sentiments of your parents' throw pillows. You're arguing that the fragile, rare thing is beautiful simply because it is fragile and rare. But that's a lie, and you know it. You're a hard person to comfort, Augustus says. Easy comfort isn't comforting, I said. You were a rare and fragile flower once. You remember. So Hazel's point, obviously, isn't that she's upset about scrambled eggs. Like, she is, but not because of scrambled eggs. And this is a beautiful metaphor here, because scrambled eggs represent that which is fragile and sacred. And it's sacred because it's fragile. As an ill person, as a chronically ill person, I kind of understand where she's coming from. Hazel's idea is that people treat her like she's special because she's fragile, because she can break easily. Her parents are so obsessed with her because at any moment she can die, and there's nothing they can do about it. So they treasure every moment with her. It's like how if you have I guess it's like a flower. But it's more like when you're somewhere, like you're on a trip, and you have, and you're nearing the end of your trip, and you have a very limited amount of time. You rush to do everything because the time is sacred, because it is rare, so you are constantly now have this drive to go, and you never are content with just taking a day off. If you're on like a 10-day trip and you're on day 9, you're not going to just be like, I don't feel like touring Rome today. You're going to go because you realize the time is sacred because there's so little of it left. And Hazel's point is that scrambled eggs aren't special because they're rare. They're not sacred because they're fragile. And what she means by that is she herself and cancer patients and terminally ill people and chronically ill people and whatever are not fragile. They're fragile, yes, but they're not special because of it. They're special in the way that all breakfast foods are. They're special in the way that all foods are. They're special in the way all people are. And so, cancer patients, like scrambled eggs, should be treated the same as other people and foods. Because Hazel's not any more special since she has thyroid cancer with mets in her lungs. I'm not any more special because I have EDS. We're special because we're people. And so that's a really powerful metaphor, and I am thoroughly in love with that one. Of course, we gotta talk about the infinities metaphor. Peter van Houten, holla. I'm like part Dutch, so that's super cool. So Peter van Houten is sitting there and he tells them about this mathematical concept wherein some infinities are bigger than other infinities. Hazel has a fundamental misapplication of this. She's like, the infinity between 0 and 1 is is smaller than the infinity between 0 and 2. She's wrong. Those are the same. It's more like the infinity of rational numbers is smaller than the infinity of whole numbers is smaller than the infinity of rational numbers is smaller than the infinity of real numbers. And I cannot explain to you why it's different, but there are great videos like the Infinite Hotel Paradox, and you can read on Wikipedia, and they can explain to you all of this crazy stuff. I want to cut my hair again. That was fun. But I think it's just such a beautiful, beautiful metaphor. Because I think it's so applicable. It's not just applicable to times, but it's applicable to, I think, love itself. As a Christian, I'm called to love. I'm called to love unconditionally. I'm called to love infinitely. And so I love everybody infinitely. But there are people I know, like my friends and my church family, who I love infinitely more than I love random person in Uganda. And that's because I'm closer to them. I know them better. And I have infinitely more love for God than I do for these friends whom I have an infinitely larger infinity of love for than the random people I don't know. And God has this infinitely larger infinity than the largest infinite love I can possibly have for me. And so these loves are deep, they're endless, they're infinite, but they're still different sizes, and God's is always going to be infinitely more infinite than any love I can produce myself. And so that's a really cool metaphor. And I think it's crazy that math has worked out so we can talk about that. I also feel like we gotta talk about the cigarettes. I talked about my favorite, more obscure one first. So John Green always is asking, what does smoking symbolize, or what do teenagers think it symbolizes? I have a lung condition. I'm very much like Hazel. Smoking is crap. If you're gonna wreck yourself, at least don't do it in public, because there are those of us who cannot breathe that stuff. And we deserve to be able to walk around in peace. So you can go ruin your lungs in your own house. And you can change your clothing between when you've smoked or when you've come into contact with smoke and when you go into public, because if it's on you, I will still not be able to breathe. So what is Gus doing? He says it really explicitly. He says it's metaphor. You put the killing thing between your teeth, but don't give it the power to kill you. And so Gus thinks he's playing God here. He's like, I had cancer. This can give me more cancer, but if I don't stick it in if I don't light it, it won't. Therefore, I'm not gonna die. And, he's wrong. He's wrong. The fault is in our stars, not within ourselves. So, Caesar is wrong, too. But here's why. As Christians, there's this concept of predestination and this concept of free will. So predestination basically dictates that your entire life has been laid out and you don't get to control anything. The fact that I'm going to be filming this video was predetermined before God even created light, which was apparently the first thing he did. And that's problematic, because then it means God directly chooses, you're going to hell. And, I have issues with that. And there's this other camp, which is free will, which is yo, God knows what's going on. Sure, he's omniscient and whatever, and he could change things, but, we have the ability to do our own stuff. And so there's sort of this area where in God's omnipotence he has granted us free will. He has predestined us to have free will. And, it's good and all to think I have the freedom to make choices. But here's the thing. Not really. I was put in this situation, and God has ordained, the whole universe so that I exist in this moment in which I exist. I exist in a time where I have access to a laptop and wireless internet. I exist in a house that is rich enough, or with a family that is rich enough to provide me with a stable filming environment and decent equipment to film on. I am filming now, and I didn't film earlier or later in life. And sure, you could argue that all of human history has been dictated by choices, and that's fair, but that doesn't explain how I ended up here instead of some other soul in me. I was put here, and maybe what I'm left to do is up to me. But my circumstances have very much been guided by God. I am given an infinity of options, or an infinity of choices within the numbered options. You could argue. I don't know. This used to be much clearer to me. So, if you hold on for 1 second, I'm gonna actually look up where I wrote that thing, the capstone outline, which I tagged John Green in 3 different times. So, my thesis was that The Fault in Our Stars is filled with nihilism on the surface, but contains valuable Christian truths beneath the layer of hopelessness. So, here's what it is. There's a lot of nihilism in here. I'm just going to read these 2 points, and then I'm going to be done, because this is a long video already. But I love talking about this. Okay. So Hazel begins as a nihilist. We're gonna turn. So it's partly fueled by the fact she has non-religious parents, but it also is because she has terminal cancer, and this plays into it. So one of her most famous monologues, 12 and 13, this is bridged. There will come a time when all of us are dead, when there are no humans to remember that anyone existed or that our species ever did anything. Everything that we did and built and wrote and thought and discovered will be forgotten, and all will have been for naught. We will not survive forever. There was a time before organisms experienced consciousness, and there will be a time after. And if the inevitability of human oblivion worries you, I encourage you to ignore it. God knows that's what everyone else does. That's pretty nihilistic, honestly. Oblivion is inevitable? Ugh. So then Peter van Gouten, this sad alcoholic dude, is a god figure. And what's interesting is, like, this question, who would want to worship a god who is so awful? It's almost like Van Houten is supposed to be a deterrent from religion. So yeah, and my source for this is when John Green actually, he provided answers somewhere. I'm not sure where this one came from, but he's like, Van Houten is definitely a metaphor, or at least a stand-in for God to Hazel. She actually makes this explicit a couple of times, saying, for instance, that an imperial affliction is as close a thing as she has to a Bible. So, confirmed. But however, just like death does not get the final say in Christianity, nihilism does not get the final say in TFIOS. So this is what's really, really cool. You've got Hazel Grace Lancaster. You've got Augustus Waters. And Grace and Waters. Ow, my tailbone! So Grace and Waters meet in the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which is a really awesome baptism metaphor. Because despite their shared suffering, they managed to give life to one another. Titus 3:5 says, He saved us through the washing of rebirth and renewal by the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit is given to us through grace. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the I do at the end, which symbolizes a wedding, which is a comedy. Because comedies are hopeful. Yeah. The death of one person does not end a relationship. Her I do signifies she realizes she's still capable of loving Augustus, and that's just as valuable as it was when he was alive, and that there's a permanence to the present tense, an infinity within the finite. The present tense is always present. It is always happening now. Okay. Finally. 223. Hazel asks her dad what he thinks about the universe. Right? The meaning of life. So he tells her that the universe is improbably biased towards consciousness, that it rewards intelligence in part because the universe enjoys its elegance being observed. And Hazel says, later, she adds, and who am I to deny it? That right or whatever. And so that's really cool. It's like not Christianity, but it's definitely a theistic statement. That the universe, or something within the universe, is probably biased towards consciousness. You could argue the universe has created a tool with which to observe itself, or you could argue that whatever created the universe created a tool with which to be observed. Finally, Gus himself believes in heaven. On page 168, he says, I believe humans have souls, and I believe in the conservation of souls. Earlier on the same page, after he had first announced his belief in something with a capital S, Hazel confesses her atheist attitude. I'd always associated belief in heaven with intellectual disengagement. And so you would expect her to be like, no souls, you're dumb. But she's a reliable narrator, and she says, but Gus wasn't dumb. August wasn't done. She values this viewpoint. My eye is watering, and there's a lot of stuff going on in here. There's the fact that when Hazel dies, Isaac, the blind guy, will be left to tell the epic of their love. There's the Amsterdam metaphor. But, like, as far as philosophy goes, and there's a lot more of that, too. There's the idea of two broken people coming together in love and hope in the midst of a place as broken as the Anne Frank house, which is something I don't know why people have issues with that. But I could talk about this book for hours, and I would love to. And John Green, I would love to hit you up and talk about that. Also, why won't you get back to me about a TFIOS musical? I have sent you like 37 Tumblr asks. If you liked any part of this video, whether it was me talking about The Fault in Our Stars or The Fault in Our Stars itself, me talking about a TFIOS musical, or me being in pain, like this video. Want to engage with me? Comment. And as always, feel free to subscribe. Because I have no life and want to make YouTube videos. I hope you have a great day, and I am not sorry it's so long.